These things that feel uncomfortable and horrible and cringeworthy often are the things that you need to do. As women, we are judged differently, especially in leadership positions. If I want to say something, I'm going to say it. You can increase your amount of luck in the world simply by talking about the things you're working on. ChatGPT, Perplexity, Synthesia for video generation, DALL-E for images. Just get using them. I consult into companies on AI, a very exciting space to be in the moment. And particularly, I focus on this point that we're at. We're moving away from AI in experiments, innovation labs to productionizing. So there was a time when AI was very much about proof of concepts, trying things, but now we're moving away from that towards having a fleet of models in production. We're moving away from what was once quite a governance gray area to governance, compliance, really having caught up. So really anyone can have a few models, but once you have a fleet of them in production, you're really dealing with very different things. So this is where I help companies with their strategy, their operations, and also thinking about the wider societal implications of AI. Many incredibly important conversations, but here's two that I think really deserve our attention. We're at this point in time where AI is making decisions that influence people's lives. Who gets hired? Who gets a loan? Who goes to jail? How do we ensure that AI has the same values we do? Can we even agree? Can we all agree what those values are? And when we decide those things, who's in the room? Is it just a small group of people or is it everybody? That's the first conversation. The second, I think, is really interesting. You know, AI, as with any technology that's come before it, has let humans outsource something. We've already outsourced so much manual labor, admin. But the thing about where we are now is potentially we can outsource something else. We can outsource our thinking. So if we're outsourcing the ability to generate ideas, to solve problems, to completely rethink our own hypotheses, do we forget how to do it? Are we potentially sleepwalking into maybe a collective cognitive decline and intellectual atrophy? I think those are the two really important conversations to have right now. And this is a problem, right? I mean, AI can feel like a very dense technical club that you're sort of shut out of unless you have a computer science degree. But the reality is this is affecting every domain of life. That door needs to stay wide open. No one needs to be shut out. So I would really suggest three things to infiltrate this space more. The first thing is to get to know it, understand what AI is changing and how it's influencing your domain. I would definitely recommend The Algorithm, which is MIT's technology newsletter, and I'd recommend Your Undivided Attention, which is a podcast. But start thinking about these things. You don't need to code to have credibility in the AI space. You need to have context. You need to have critical thinking. The second thing, use the tools. I'm sure most people are using tools. If you're not, start now. ChatGPT, Perplexity, Synthesia for video generation, DALL-E for images. Just get using them. And then once you're comfortable with them, take it to the next level. Play with prompt engineering. Play with different styles of interacting with AI because this is how we talk to AI. Play with something like Socratic dialogue, role play, reverse brainstorming. Things like Claude and ChatGPT lend themselves really well to playing with the tone and the temperature settings. Get yourself understanding how you talk to machines in this way. And then a third thing is get yourself a foundational understanding of some key things. Transformers, parameters, bias. These sort of give you power in conversations where there's a lot of gatekeeping, and a lot of what the gatekeeping is jargon. Just cut through that jargon, won't take you long, and then you're in 3 steps to being part of this new conversation. All the same things that you would apply to anything where women need to have a greater voice, the early education and exposure, the role modeling. So I won't go over those things. What I would say specifically to AI is I really think we need to challenge the boys' club. I think that any AI tool that is built, that is released, that is talked about, we all have a right to say who built that and who was in the room when you built that. What did you take into account when you built it? I think we should all task ourselves with doing that. I always say I was forged in the fires of the Accenture graduate program. It was brilliant. Really, we were sent to client sites, immersed from day one, and expected to be, contributing and valuable and useful from day one in huge, big organizations, tech functions, very male-dominated spaces. And what I learned very early on was that to earn your voice has to be heard. And that can be very uncomfortable for us as women. You know how you always hear women don't apply for a job unless they meet every single criteria. I think we can do that when we speak as well. So to start getting my voice heard, I had to break up with this idea that everything we say has to be 10,000 million% correct and also groundbreaking. And I set myself the challenge to have my voice heard in every interaction, ask a question, put forward an opinion, just have something. Now, I'd love to tell you that I never said anything stupid. I'd love to tell you I was never a muppet. It didn't quite happen. I did not become known as a genius, but I became known as someone who participated, someone who had something to say, somebody who was there with a voice. Second thing is, I read early on, I don't know who wrote it, I'd love to be reminded so I can credit them. What I read was, you can increase your amount of luck in the world simply by talking about the things you're working on. That was quite powerful for me. I started to talk about the things I was working on to people I met in the office, on LinkedIn, at conferences. And after a while, this becomes a sort of a force multiplier. People not only hear your voice, but they seek out your voice. So for building credibility, I always try to focus on how data connects to winning for the business rather than to technically prove myself. So for me, this meant things like establishing new IP for a business, opening new revenue streams, reimagining what that business can do. Those are things that sort of cut across technical and gender boundaries. A second thing was I would always place an emphasis on cross-functional collaboration. Because once you can have quick wins that cross functions, you are sort of coalition building. And this is something that builds reputational capital. And reputational capital is how you get to credibility. And then a final thing, whether we liked it or not, as women, we are judged differently, especially in leadership positions. So I always would show up incredibly prepared, but always with the intention of making space for other people to speak, especially people that didn't often get the floor. And I found through those three things, that was a way to build credibility. And of course, once you build credibility, it leads to influence. I think it was being open to very different approaches at different points in time, and approaches that wouldn't necessarily sit particularly comfortably with me. So there was a point in time we had a lot of innovation going on. It was amazing. We had so many different things being built, trialed, tested, failed, forgotten. And in and amidst all of the chaos, a few really strong tools started to be built, really strong tools that really did something for the business that only AI or ML could do. And those wins really came from that period of disorderly chaos where everybody had the right to think about things and build things without oversight, without being chivied, without being excessively watched. So we needed that period of innovative chaos. And then once you have a few things in production, once it starts to get a bit more real, you need a very different approach. Things had to get super organized, very efficient. We started to have to put things like machine learning operation systems in place, proper handovers of work between machine learning engineers, data scientists. Code had to be written in the assigned repo in the production-ready templated workflows. So it was a different way to do things. And as I'm speaking, you can probably hear what the resistance was. There are always a group of people that really want to work and thrive in that environment where you're developing quickly, you're thinking, you're trying, you're failing, you're testing. And then there are a group of people who oversee the systems, the pipelines, whom to work or receive work in that way is totally overwhelming. So always trying to manage that tension and pick the right things for the right time. Many times I've had situations where all my direct reports have been men. They've all been older than me, taller than me, deeper voices than me. And I know none of this really matters. I know none of it should intimidate me, but it did. It really did. And the way I dealt with this early on in my career, I would not recommend. I was very agreeable. I was highly overly collaborative. I brought everybody in. I gave maybe too much importance to everybody's view. I was very democratic. And it wasn't good. It wasn't working. Decisions weren't getting made. Things weren't getting built. We weren't moving quickly enough. And once I realized that, I realized I had to shift more into owning authority. I just had to step up and do things properly. And for me, that was one concept. It was tolerate discomfort. And what that looked like for me was, I said to myself, if I want to say something, I'm going to say it. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If I need to make a decision that some people are going to be unhappy with, well, unfortunately, I'm going to go and make it. If something has been completed that does not meet my standards or my expectations, I'm going to say it. These are very uncomfortable things to do. Nobody really likes to say to someone, well, that wasn't great, was it? But I forced myself to get into that way of working more and more. Very uncomfortable, cringing, daily, sweating. But it didn't kill me. It became a habit. And once you step into authority and you behave with authority, that is the way that people behave towards you. The problem I faced in a few companies was interesting. It was not being deeply technical, but managing very technical teams. And the reality is, in a lot of C-level roles, you can't be particularly technical because you have so many subdomains. You can potentially be very technical in one or two, but not all of them. But it was one of these things, people wanted to be led by someone incredibly technical, and I wasn't that person. But I did realize that it wasn't a case of I brought no value. I did bring a lot of value. For example, I was the only person that had ever been able to secure investment in our function to get more tech tools, to get resources. Several times I was the only person who'd been able to secure quarterly meetings with the global chairman to show him our progress, show him what we were doing, ask for more input from him. I was once the only person who was able to start to advertise our work externally and build us a book of business that was revenue generating. So I knew myself that I was valuable. I did bring things that a lot of technical people didn't. The problem was, I thought it went without saying, I wasn't telling people this, I wasn't reminding them. And when I started to make that change, when I started to say more, well, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm enabling your expertise to shine, this is how I am elevating your technical work so it gets what it deserves, that was a game changer. That was different. So that is my going forward. Don't forget to sell your own value. Don't forget to step into that. Again, it's uncomfortable. It's what we were speaking about earlier, tolerating the discomfort. These things that feel uncomfortable and horrible and cringeworthy often are the things that you need to do. It's not going to kill you to do them. It's going to feel a bit sweaty for a while and then you'll be fine. It's been really profound for me. It's just me. So what I've had to do is really trust my own judgment. There aren't loads of people for me to run things by and say, is this looking stupid? What do you think about this? It's just me. And I feel like trusting our own judgment is something that we get talked out of it. We unlearn it from the time we're very small children. You feel things as a child, you know things as a child, but there's always someone to say to you something like, the broccoli won't taste that bad. Your piano lesson will be fun. The child who's mean to you didn't really mean it, when you know the child did mean it. The piano lesson will not be fun and the broccoli is disgusting. But you sort of unlearn these things, don't you? You forget how to trust your own judgment. Or if you're someone that needs to find your way back to that, I highly recommend being self-employed. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.